Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1991 Ford Taurus GL Wagon. Up front is a 3.0 liter V6, and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this Ford Taurus Wagon for a couple of reasons. First of all, this car always feels very homey to me. I grew up with a Ford Taurus. That was our family vehicle. And so there's a lot of nostalgia for me, but also it has the burgundy interior, it's a white wagon, and it's very, very early 90s, so I'm excited to share this vehicle with you today. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that 3-liter Vulcan V6 under the hood. Well, it was good for about 140 horsepower, and you might be thumbing your nose at that. You might say, Zach, that's pretty pathetic. The all-new Nissan Sentra makes 149 horsepower out of a 2-liter naturally aspirated inline-4. Well, you would be right, but you have to remember the era of which this V6 was coming out of. This engine debuted in 1986 and was coming out of the oil crisis where V8s were making under 200 horsepower. So this is pretty good for what it was. Now, there was a 4-cylinder offered as well, a 2.5-liter inline-4. Honestly, not many people picked it up. Like I said, paired to it is a 4-speed automatic, again, standard here for the Taurus. Although you could find a 5-speed manual, this is the 4-speed auto, and it works fine enough. And last but not least, it is, of course, front-wheel drive. So how does it feel to drive the Ford Taurus Wagon? It actually drives really nice. Because it is front-wheel drive, you get some decent room in the cabin. It has nice ride quality to it. There is a humming because one of the brake calipers is not wanting to cooperate with me here today, but that's okay. But it's smooth, it's controllable. 140 horsepower is good, but the torque from the V6 is great. Overall, it's just a nice driving car. I always imagine, like, whenever I see a car in a cartoon, this is basically it. It's the most plain Jane driving experience you can have, but that's good. That's kind of nice to be. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 3 gauges and a lot of warning lights. So off to the left is my coolant temperature, in the center is a speedometer, and off to the right is my fuel. And of course, we get warning lights strewn throughout. On the steering wheel, we do have cruise control, which is very nice, and this is the facelifted steering wheel for 1989 and after. Off to the left, we do have a headlight switch as well as our climate control vent. We have our gauge dimmer switch down below. And moving on to the door, we have power mirrors, our power windows, as well as our power locks. Moving into the center, we get a rear defrost button, our digital clock, and climate controls, fan speed off to the left, temperature in the center, and where to send it off to the right, as well as we do get a climate control vent down below. And then we get our factory radio, as well as our coin holders and cup holders. So we'll do a big friggin' bottle test, and it fails. However, I love that this was found on these old Tauruses. Soft cups only because they might become a projectile in an accident. I love that attention to detail that other vehicles just never really had. Down on the floor, we do have an aftermarket center console. I normally breeze by these. However, this is very period correct. You would go and buy this at like Lowe's or Menards or Pep Boys or something like that for your vehicle. So cool to see. And then we move up to the seats. It does have a bench seat, and the seats are burgundy along with the rest of the interior, which I absolutely adore. This interior is just so retro and so comforting. You know, it feels like a house that's lived in rather than a sterile filming location, if that makes sense. It's worn in and it's comfy, and the different colors and the maroon, the warmth that it brings. I love to see all of that. However, speaking of seats, we have 2 more rows of seating, of course, so let's go do some back seat reviews. All right, getting in the back of the 91 Taurus Wagon, this door does not want to open. But once we are back here, not a whole ton of space. As you can see, my knees are hitting the seat in front of me, and as you can see over here, you know, not a much better story at that. Headroom is pretty good, though. I am 5'11", not a small guy, and I fit back here pretty well. So vertically it's good, but just in front of me, is not very good. However, there is a remedy for that because there is a third row in the very back, so let's hop back there and take a look. All right, so we're on the back of the Ford Taurus wagon. We do have a circle key here, and if you look, if you turn it to the right, it opens the glass. If you turn it to the left, it opens the gate. So turn it to the right at first, and the gate does come up. Absolutely love to see that. However, the struts have since gone out, but really, really great for accessing things without stuff rolling out of the vehicle. I always love to see when cars have accessible glass. Lower it back down like that, and then we could turn it to the left, and now the gate is open. Luckily for me, these struts are still working, and we get the rear compartment. So we do have cargo, of course, we have some bins and whatnot, but if we fold this up, it says lift handle to close, lock with key. You can pull this up, and then we get this sticker that says floor panel must be locked when using picnic table. I don't know what they're referring to with picnic table, but very, very cool. If I can find a picture online, I will put it in now. If not, you're seeing a picture of me from junior high. So a win-win in both regards. But flip it up like that. Then you hit this down here. Kind of hard to do one-handed, but there's a switch there. And then you get the pop-up third row. So I will crawl in here. So we're now in the third row of the 91 Ford Taurus wagon. However, I will not make the same mistake that I made a couple of years ago by hopping back here and closing the rear gate because there is no internal door release. So if you sat back here as a kid, you had to have someone let you out. Huge, huge, huge safety concern from Ford, and vehicles nowadays have a remedy for that. Even trunks have to have that glow-in-the-dark emergency pull handle. That didn't exist here in 91. So if you close this gate on yourself, you better hope that someone was outside and that someone had keys or you were climbing over the seats to try to get out. So very, very cool. You can put that down and ride back here. And we do get seat belts. So very neat there, but this is just something that you don't really see much of anymore, and everyone who grew up in this era has a story about a rear-facing third row, and the Taurus has it. So very, very cool. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I do like the look of the Taurus. Now this was groundbreaking for 1986. However, by 1991, a lot of other cars started to catch on, even with the Ford Motor Company, and so by 1991, this was kind of not a has-been. It was still on the cutting edge, but people were pretty used to it. It wasn't as groundbreaking in 91 as it was in 86, so definitely cool to see, but not as jaw-dropping as it once was. Now, something interesting that the owner pointed out is that this particular one does have the factory hubcaps, and I always assumed that the hubcaps were plastic. However, looking at them, they're this weird, almost foam. Very, very strange here for the Ford Taurus, and something I never noticed. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving the Ford Taurus wagon from 1991? Well, this isn't the newest experience I've ever had. I've driven another Ford Taurus wagon. I've driven a Ford Taurus sedan from this era, as well as I've driven the Mercury Sable wagon that was shared on this chassis, a little bit more updated. That was green on green, and I'll leave that video at the end of this one if you'd like to check it out. But why do I gravitate towards these vehicles, and why do they feel so comfortable? Well, there's a myriad of reasons why, but the biggest is the fact that everything is plain and simple and straightforward. It doesn't feel like this car is trying to trick you or trying to make you think that it's something that it isn't. If you want the third row, you literally have to pull it out of the floor. The climate controls, 3 strong knobs, a radio, power mirrors and power windows. Like, everything is so truthful. And that's what I like about this era of vehicles. They're modern enough where this is a fuel-injected V6 and makes respectable power and is respectable torque, and driving it here today, it still keeps up with modern traffic well over 30 years later. It's still modern enough, but it's still simple enough. It's this really, really great crossover. But then again, it has that charm of a full burgundy interior. Sure, you can buy cars today with red seats, maybe a red dash insert, sure, but every nook and cranny of this interior is red, red, red. It was like the Burgundy company was going out of business and everything must go. And I love that. This is stylistic. When you committed to an interior color in 91, you committed to an interior color. Nowadays, it's like, I got tan seats, but it's a black interior. I got gray seats on a gray interior. This, you had to love it, and people did love it, and it has something classy and sort of old money about it. I love that about this vehicle. And I'm sure I'm doing this review well past this car when it came out. I wasn't alive when this car came out. And so some of this might be rose-colored glasses. Some of this might be turbocharged nostalgia. But now, having driven over 2,000 vehicles, having driven so many new 26 model year vehicles, I have the retrospective to look at this. And this is way more simple. This is way more friendly, way more inviting of a vehicle to drive. And that is something that I miss. This was the family truckster from many years ago, and I wish we had simple and honest vehicles like this here today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Ted for letting me borrow his Ford Taurus wagon, as he has done multiple times before. I reviewed his other Ford Taurus wagon as well as his Ford Taurus sedan. There's a comparison video out on the channel, as well as you'll see that sedan video at some point. Ted's absolutely wonderful. I've reviewed so many of his vehicles. Great friend and huge help to the channel. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.